Well, hey everyone, Patrick Batty here with Pickleball Today. My co-host Mark Bittorf is unable to join us this week, but it's a great day. It's a sunny day here in Cambridge, Ontario. Unlike last week, though, I wanted to record from outside because it's so bright and sunny, but it's too darn cold. It's frosty out a little bit this morning, so I'm here in the office. I had a good week of playing pickleball this week. Mark did as well. I got in some other exercise as we were talking last week. Just a general recovery exercise program. And in a nutshell, and I'm pleased to say I am feeling great. And I am 100% over my groin injury. I played last night. I can't feel anything, and I played not quite as well as I have because, again, I'm just getting back. But I played very well compared to even a few weeks ago. So that said, we are not going to be getting into training with Mark today, but we have a really special guest today. His name is Dr. Erik Korem, and I'll be introducing Erik shortly. Erik is going to be talking mental health in pickleball and wherever our conversation takes us. But before we get started, I just want to remind you that Pickleball Today is Canada's national pickleball news source and podcast. We talk all things pickleball. We've actually expanded beyond Canada, not intentionally, but because 2/3 of our listeners and viewers are outside of Canada. So we're not just dedicated to Canada now, even though we started out with that focus. You can see us at pickleballtoday.co, our website, pickleballtoday, all one word, .co. And we have biweekly paddle contests where you can win a paddle at pickleballtoday.co/win. We have too many paddles. We want to send you one. Erik, we want to send you one too. So anyway, what you do there is just go to that page, pickleballtoday.co/win. Help us spread the word, sharing and commenting on our content, liking posts, liking the podcast, 5-star rating or whatever you want to rate us at on the podcast. We hope we merit a 5-star rating, and it helps us spread the word. So with that said, I want to welcome Dr. Erik Korem to the podcast. Welcome, Erik.
Thank you, Patrick, for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm excited. I know you've been on a lot of podcasts lately. I just want to give a quick intro of you, if you permit me,
Sure.
Before we get started. I have listened to some of your podcasts. What's it called? The name of
The Blueprint.
The Blueprint. Yes, that's right. And I have that, by the way, that's down at the end of my notes. I'm not there yet, but I've listened to some of your podcasts. I really enjoy them. But I want to tell a little bit about your background before we get started. I mean, Erik's been a leader in kind of human performance and sports, dealing in elite sports science with both the NCAA and NFL, particularly with the Houston Texans in the NFL?
Yep.
And Florida State University in the NCAA, and University of Kentucky, if I recall correctly. Is that right? Also, Erik is has been involved even in the past in wearable technology. He's doing that again now. A bit more. We'll talk more about that. But really, the big background that we're interested in is his knowledge of sports sciences and gradual kind of switch over to a focus on pickleball. And I just want to welcome Erik. Erik has a PhD, obviously, Dr. Erik Korem. He was also in the Presidential Leadership Council in the United States. So, Erik, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome to Pickleball Today.
It's great to be here.
Welcome to Canada.
One of my favorite places to visit.
Kind of. It's probably warmer where you are than it is where I am today. Hey, before we even get started, and then I'm going to just turn it over to you and ask, I wondered what got you into your shift a little bit from like football and other sports into pickleball.
Yeah, so my career in college and professional sports, I was really focused on, training athletes, and then it progressed to how do we use data to build better human performance solutions and help people stay, prevent injury. And this was ultra personalized solutions for athletes. And what I wanted to do is now with the proliferation of these wearable devices like Apple Watches and Garmin's, et cetera, a lot of that same technology is available on your wrist, but it's being used poorly. It's just a data layer. And so I wanted to turn that into personalized health and performance solutions for just the everyday person, right? Like everybody should have access to information to help them look, feel, and perform their best. And so we developed this company called AIM7, and we can do some really amazing stuff with data. And it was originally for just general health and wellness, where people are like, hey, I exercise, I want to improve my mental health, I want to sleep better, I want to recover better. Help me turn my wearable data into a better solution. And I knew that we really needed to find an audience to focus on, like a smaller, quote, smaller group of people. And a friend of mine who actually helped start Duper and Major League Pickleball called me up one day and he said, hey, Erik, you should focus your tech on pickleball players. I'm like, really? And he goes, just look at the market. And so I took a look at it. I was like, wow, like this game is exploding. There's not a scalable tech solution in the market focused on the individual player. And there's a lot of injuries. And as you would read articles, people are talking about their frustrations with hitting plateaus. I'm like, this is exactly what we know how to improve. And so I put together a world-class team of sports psychologists, sports scientists, nutritionists, exercise and data scientists to help build this program, including the former head of wellness and development for the Toronto Raptors, Alex Arbach's on our team. So
okay.
We shifted the product to pickleball and did like a public beta starting last March, and it just did really well. People adopted it. They used it a lot. People were sticky with it. They were, we could see improvements in sleep. We could see improvements in stress. We could see improvements, less soreness. People were performing better. We were getting all this feedback from players on winning more tournaments. And it just, so in October 1st, we launched, really did the full launch of AIM7 in the App Store. And there's some really cool things that are going on. UCLA's, one of our app users is a neuroscientist at UCLA. She's a pickleball instructor and an avid player. And she reached out and said, hey, I'd love to do a research study with AIM7 on how pickleball and using your app impacts people's health and well-being. So this is a first of its kind study that just got launched. And because we've been able to empirically demonstrate when you use this solution, you have all these improvements. And so I'm actually going to give you a link here if anybody's listening and they want to use our solution for free. I think we've still got 150 licenses left. So if anybody's listening and want to try this, I'll give it to you. And if you qualify, you can use the app. But otherwise, you could just go to the App Store. But yeah, that's how I got into pickleball.
Well, thank you. It's interesting that you're, the connection with the fellow from Duper, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, obviously, it's all over the industry.
Yeah.
And what did you say? It was Major League Pickleball as well. They were connected,
so
right? Yeah.
Both of those, and his chief of staff's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Good for you. I'm excited you are. And I installed the app. I've only tracked a little bit because I haven't been. You know what I've done? I've been doing a lot of walking lately, and I've gone through some of your training, but I haven't played a ton of pickleball.
Yeah.
But I've gone through some of it. But I will reserve any comments on the app myself because of a little bit of a lack of experience. But you can tell us more when we get there.
Yeah.
So specifically, just so you know, my interest is on the mental health side of pickleball, only because I probably fall in some spectrum. Mark and I joke about this all the time, and I guess we all do in some respect. But I have my own kind of ADD or something like that. But also more the interest in mental health side was because of dealing with my wife, who is now fully hospitalized with Alzheimer's. I saw pickleball as a vehicle to have more social interaction with people for anybody, but also for myself once she was hospitalized. I saw it, obviously there's the physical benefits of it. It is quite an aerobic sport when you get into it.
Yeah.
A little bit of strength too. I know my legs, after playing for about 3 months, my legs were like rocks. They really changed quite a bit. But I saw that. But the mental health side specifically is one that I see of benefit, even though it's maybe not of conscious benefit to people. It's the fact that you're out there, you're seeing other people. It's a bit more social than certain sports, and that you're closer to them, like even than tennis. You can have some chatter if you want. It can be fun. It can be, whatever, but it's just fun, right? And it's just a good time. And as opposed to sitting and gaming like crazy or whatever people do, or worse yet, watching, politics news on TV nonstop. It's such a healthy activity. So that's why I got involved. And because of that, started a club. Because of that, had to learn how to be a coach. Because of that, I have advised on sports injuries and how to avoid them, because that's our job day one as a coach. And most of my coaching is new players. I'm only qualified to teach new, whereas Mark, my partner here, is qualified for much more advanced players than I. And we do a lot of work on teaching people, new players, but I also see that a lot of times people don't pay attention to that training, like running backwards or stretching in advance. The number of times I go on the court and people just pick up a paddle and start playing, or they dink 5 times and now they're warmed up and things like that. There's so much more that can be involved to prevent injuries too. So I think really the focus today, if it's okay with you, is both the mental health side and also any kind of injury prevention type feedback you can give us.
Sure. So from a mental health perspective, I mean, we do know exactly what you just said, that because of the social connection, the social network that's created, that it really does impact your mental well-being. I think there's over 60 peer-reviewed papers on the subject right now, but is there something specific you want to talk about, or maybe improving mental performance skills?
Yeah, that definitely is one for me. I talk about the social benefits and all that, but also, the mental performance skills during play as well.
Yeah.
Like Mark and I chatted about that a week or two ago. In other words, don't let the last point wreck your next one.
Yeah. So, this is a really common issue. I'll just start by saying this, that like there's a myth that the best in the world don't experience uncomfortable thoughts, emotions, and feelings. If the outcome of an event is or an experience is uncertain and important, and you're going to be judged on it, you should expect to feel uncomfortable. So think about this in anything in your life. If you're going to do a talk in public, or you're going to do a presentation at work, if the outcome of the event is uncertain and important, you're going to be judged, you should expect to feel uncomfortable. And so the best athletes feel this way. And if you play in a tournament or a league, or you're just starting to, play more often, you may start to feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. There's actually the greatest Olympic cyclist of all time. His name is Sir Chris Hoy, and he won 6 Olympic gold medals. And when they asked him what it felt like to race in an Olympic finals, he said it felt like he was going to the gallows. Like he was going to be executed. And I've trained several Olympic gold medalists, and it is unbelievably, like the pressure is unbelievable. And so everybody's going to feel this way. The degree that you feel it is obviously dependent upon the magnitude of the circumstance, or how big you build it up in your mind. But what every athlete wants in these situations is control of their attention. Because when you can control your attention, then you can take action anchored in your training and in your values. The values part is a little bit more of like your personal life, but the training that you undertake. And so when people get nervous or anxious, typically they kind of get tunnel vision, and they have their optionality of decisions they can make begins to narrow. They're not as fluid in their decision-making processes. However, if you're aware and you have control of your attention, then you can direct your attention. So for instance, Chris Hoy, when he was talking about how awful he felt in those Olympic finals, he would then say, then I would shift my attention to my hands on the steering wheel, or my feet in the clips, or my butt in the seat. And so then he could ground himself in the present moment, And then when the gun went off, he could take action. And typically once the gun goes off or once things get rolling, typically people start to calm down a bit. So one of the best ways that you can train attentional awareness is through mindfulness. And mindfulness is not a religious practice. However, some people, choose to incorporate that in their religious beliefs. But it's really training yourself to be fully aware of your thoughts, feelings, and what you're doing in the present moment. And there's a lot of different ways that you can train mindfulness. One of the most common ways to do it is to close your eyes, just focus on your breath, and just observe your breath. And if you've never done this before, it's way more difficult than people think, because your mind's going to just kind of wander off and start thinking about all sorts of stuff. That's what your mind does. Where the magic happens is when you realize that your brain is off thinking about the news or whatever, and then you bring your attention back to the breath. This is what creates what are called the plastic changes in your brain. And we know that Amisha Jha's lab at the University of Miami has demonstrated that I think it's like 6 weeks of mindfulness training literally rewires your brain. You start to see structural changes under functional MRI. So the gateway to all of this, of all the things that you want, is your ability to control and be aware of where your attention is. Because once you're able to do that, then you actually have the ability to take action in some specific ways. You mentioned kind of this letting one point lead to another bad point, leading to another bad point. I call this, the 1 point mentality. In football, where I spent a lot of my years, we would say that every play has a lifespan of its own. And as soon as that play is over with, you process it and you move forward. There's not enough time. You can't just dwell on it. And if you do, it's going to ruin everything.
Right.
Same thing with pickleball. And so a really cool framework that people can use is the release, reset, refocus framework. And my friend Alex Arbach kind of coined this thing. And so basically, like, when a bad point happens or occurs, right, or you make a mistake, you need to release that. You need to give yourself permission to deal with it later. And you need to literally flush it like a toilet. So some psychologists say use an internal or external cue. Like, you could say something really quickly. Don't say anything that's going to disrupt anybody else, but you could have some people kind of smack themselves on the thigh with the paddle, or they walk back and touch the fence. Like, you got to let it go. Like, okay, I'm releasing that. Right. Then reset. You got to anchor yourself in the present moment. So you can do this, you want to bring yourself back. This is where the attentional awareness comes back to right here, right now. So you could wiggle your toes. You could focus on gripping your paddle. You could take one deep breath in and out, just okay, I'm here. And then you need to think, what's important now? What's the one thing that I can control and take action on in the moment? So if you're on defense, maybe it's your alignment on the court. Maybe if you're about to serve, you go through your routine, make your play call, whatever it is. You can talk to your partner, whatever. Just what's the one confident action you can control that you can take action on? So it's release, reset, refocus.
I think that you've just given me some gold. I just have had this way of, going on runs negatively or positively.
Yeah.
And almost most of my game is that. But it's usually on the negative way. It's usually because I'm beating myself up.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not.
I've never. I think I talked about last week. I've only been mad at a partner once, and in the 2 years that I've played, but I get mad at myself. I didn't last night, but I do frequently. Mm-hmm. And when I start getting mad at myself, I start getting worse. So I just got to get myself out of it. And I think I'm going to listen to that section over again, by the way. And because I just like the idea of take a breath, reset, focus on the next thing you can do. Whatever. Now it all happens fast in pickleball if you're on defense, right? The person's ready to serve right away. But
Well, it has to be quick. You have to
yeah,
really practice this. These
yeah,
are things that don't just happen.
yes.
So if you want to be good at this, you better practice.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
and I still consult with some organizations in different sports, and we talk about this, like how are we going to get the players to do this, and it comes down to them in advance coming up with their release, reset, refocus protocol, and then actually putting it into action in practice. And then when
right.
you put it into action in practice, then you can put it into action in the game. And so I'm actually going to send you a link here. I have a podcast I did with Alex on this exact framework.
Oh, great.
So
And I'll put everything, by the way, all links will go in our show notes naturally.
yeah, it's only like 6 minutes, so
Okay,
you
cool.
hear it.
Cool. The other thing I have noticed is frequently in a point, I'll do something wrong. And I know I did it wrong. I mean, like I literally said, like the moment I do it, I said, yeah, why did I know I'm not supposed to do that. Why am I doing it? That's just it sounds odd maybe, but it just happens, right? And it's like, oh God, whatever it would be. I know I said it once last night, and literally the moment I do it, I'm no. So what? I got to get the yeses in automatically, and less of the react after the fact of what I did to mess up. And again, and I hold my own in games. I just do beat myself up a little bit on it though too.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
That's why people apologize on the court a lot, right? And
Oh yeah.
don't apologize. So obviously you're not alone on this.
Oh no.
It really depends on like how serious this is for you. Some people, they're just casual players. I would assume most of the people listening to this are beyond casual.
Yeah.
And so it's important to them. Again, if it's uncertain and important, guess what? You should expect to feel a little uncomfortable. And so when you make a mistake, you're like, oh, why did I do that? Well, then it goes back to your training.
Yeah.
And you have to train physically. Like if you want to be good in pickleball, there's a couple things you have to improve: the physical, the psychological, the technical, and the tactical. And if you don't improve all of them, you're going to have you're going to hit a ceiling.
Yep.
And so like most players over index on the tactical. I mean, they just play. Mm-hmm. They don't actually refine the skill. The skill are the building blocks for the tactical. Then they don't develop the physical components to enhance their performance on the court. They're not mobile enough. Their tissues aren't resilient enough. They don't have the physical fitness to endure. And so they break down, they get injured, and then they go into this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And then they don't have the mental tools available to like, you can do all of those other things and then get in the moment and totally crap the bed. And so like the idea is like you got to train all of these things. And that's where pickleball has not matured as a sport yet. People just go play and they're like, why am I not getting better? It's because you're not actually treating it like a sport. Mm-hmm. And I hear a lot of people complain about hitting a plateau, and it's not their fault. They just don't understand it yet. But tell me what other sport, professional sport, or somebody like that's playing like in a regular rec league would just show up and start. There's a warm-up process.
Right.
There's mental tools. They're training off the court, and if you're like, well, I'm not that serious, like everybody should be doing some resistance training. And why not add a few things in there to make sure that you can move better on the court, have better balance, prevent fractures, all that kind of stuff.
Yep. But by the way, I like resistance bands.
It's a good place to start, but eventually your body's going to adapt and it will no longer work.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So think about it, like in like your skill instruction, right?
Right.
Students progress because it's the nervous system. Their nervous system adapts to the training. They create a new motor pattern, and then it's like, I need another level of stimulus. The human body is such that it's an adaptation machine. Your body and brain is designed to adapt to stress. So resistance bands are a great place to start, but eventually you're not going to get enough resistance to actually stimulate an adaptation. So you're just going to stay the same. And even into your 70s or older, machines are a safe way to continue to safely increase resistance, maintain lean muscle, increase bone mineral density.
Mm-hmm. Now the ones I have are they go in different thicknesses, right?
Yeah.
And so the thickest one is 200 pounds, and I'm a long way from that. So that one I don't even pick up at this point. But it's I just find it at least I'll do it, right? Whereas if it's go to the gym, like 95% of everybody, you sign up, you go a few times, and then you just pay the bill a lot. So I've never been a dedicated gym guy. I've always been a games guy, even in, high school, varsity sports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I play, and I know you're from Texas, and therefore football rules. I'm from Canada, therefore hockey rules. I played a lot of hockey for, about, 11 years. And then some in my, over the hill leagues as well. Even that, there wasn't a lot. There was skill training, but there wasn't any physical training in those days. Beyond that, there should be, and there is now. But I think it was around 72 when Canada played the Russians and then the Swedes, and gradually Canada started adopting the type of training that they were doing in some of these other countries. Right?
Yeah, the Russians were quite a bit ahead.
Yeah, in that kind of thing. Yeah. So anyway, I just appreciate that. I think that's worthwhile. Now, did you want to cover any other specifics on the mental side, or maybe the social aspect of it and the value of it?
I mean, I would just say that there is a value to it.
Yeah.
The research is proving that out.
Yeah.
In order for humans to thrive, they need a social connection. You need community. You need engagement. Being in isolation is not good.
Right.
COVID taught everybody that, like being in isolation, like the data is showing that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of research now coming out from the COVID periods where isolation is not a good thing. That's why,
and as I said, that was when we went through the whole thing with my wife starting up. Now, we were walking like crazy, but that was just the two of us. Once in a while, another couple or two, right? But mainly walking like crazy. And then I continued walking with her even as she was getting a little worse, because it kept her calm, and she was totally addicted to it. As was I. In fact, we use an app called the Conqueror Challenges, which, we would map our walks around the world, country by country, and it would be kind of fun. And it just made it more interesting. Although we have wonderful trails right behind our house, so we would generally start here, and we're into wooded trails along a river right behind our house.
Amazing.
And you go from here to, Toronto, 60, 70 miles, or you can go north. Even about 4 miles from here, you get onto it's called the Trans-Canada Trail. If you literally wanted to, you could walk or ride your bike to one side of the country or the other. It would take a while, but you could do it. But we probably peaked at around 20 kilometers in any of our walks. And then we had a couple of days when we traveled where we did like 30 kilometers in a day, touring a city on just walking around while we were waiting for a flight about 15 hours later, and we didn't want to sit around an airport. So, but we cramped up on the plane. It was crazy. Let's see. I think you covered pretty much what I was focusing on. I just want to, it's too bad we don't do these live. I'd love to have had other people on to do it, and we're going to start doing live ones in the next month, or at least in the new year, where we'll have a live audience. Something. Maybe we'll get you back at that sometime if you feel like it and are up to it. I know you do a lot. You're a busy guy, so. But I think you've covered a lot. I don't have anything else I can offer. I assume a lot of the pros and that are going through a lot of this type of training. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean they are. It's still maturing. I think where the big gap is that like 3-0 to 5-0 player that wants to get better.
Yeah.
And I think there's a couple basic things that they're just ignoring because they haven't been exposed to it.
Yeah.
For instance, everybody should be doing a 4-part neuromuscular warm up before they warm up and before they
Okay.
play. Because you're going to start faster.
Yep.
You're going to not lose as many early points. You're going to improve your mobility. And also you're going to prevent injuries. And it's mind blowing to me. People, just like you said, walk on the court, and a warm up should progress from general to specific. So you should start with general movements that become more progressive. If we don't, we don't have to go into all the parts of the warm up. I can send you a link. We have a free warm up guide that we built on all these different 4 parts.
Okay. Okay.
But everybody should be doing at least 5 minutes of warming up.
Yep.
Ideally, the more you progress, the more complex the warm up should become, because it's going to challenge your body in different planes. Because now the movement, the thing about the places and the weird positions you get yourself on the court, you do not want to experience those when you're moving fast for the first time. So you want to build the tissue resilience for that. And then also, like, everybody should be resistance training. So from a longevity perspective, pickleball is awesome for cardiovascular fitness, for balance, for power. But resistance training is kind of the other component that's missing.
Right.
It's for overall health and wellness. And then I would say another thing that a lot of players aren't managing is how much time they spend on the court. So there are some specific rules of thumb that people should be following on how quickly they progress. So like if you go from I've never played before to 4 times a week, it's a recipe for disaster. And players that want to quickly ramp up for a tournament, like they'll go from like I'm playing twice a week to now playing like 4 or 5 times a week. And what you really need to do is understand like how quickly can I ramp things up, and then what is my body ready for every day. And that's one of the things our app does, is we actually give the players a daily recommendation for how long and how hard they should play.
Is it kind of in the idea of like a 10% increase in a week at max?
That could be a guide, a 10% guide.
Yeah.
There are different use cases. So for instance, if you're early on, 10% would be like 3 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
So, roughly 15%. If you've been playing for a long time, I would definitely not do more than 10%.
Yeah.
And then you need to have daily adjustments based off of life is like got all these different factors: sleep, stress, work stress, family stress. How hard did I go yesterday? How hard have I gone the past 7 days? Am I overdoing it based off of my past 28-day average? Like there's a lot of things to think about.
Right.
But these are the things where the game, like you can get a significant advantage over your opponents if you just do a few basic things consistently.
Yeah. Well, that's great. We mentioned you weren't here a couple weeks ago. I was just back from injury and I played once or twice. Well, I was so winded. I'd been playing 2.5 hours a day for five days a week down in Florida in the spring. And I was there for about 6 weeks, maybe 5, and just really played a lot. I'd been playing a lot before that. Then this injury happened in July. I virtually did nothing other than walk a little bit and the physio exercises that I was given, but no real cardio at all. I was just really playing it safe. Did some walking on a cruise. I was walking every day. And then on the very last day, did in the groin again, lifting luggage. So it just backed me up a bit. But when I got back, oh my goodness, was I winded. So it's been like 3 months since I'd been playing a lot. And that was just 2 weeks ago. And, last podcast, I said to Mark, I'm dedicated to do some things. Now, we're not doing them all at once. I like swimming. I like walking. I like resistance bands, and I forgot to even mention a stationary bike. Now, I have a regular stationary bike, not a Peloton, but that type, but I want to switch over to a recumbent bike because the regular one bugs my back after a while. So I may have to switch it. I'll do some rides on it right now, but until I have a recumbent, I don't think much because I have a sciatic nerve issue. So maybe resistance training will help the core enough that I won't have a sciatic nerve issue. I don't know, right? But I've had it all my life, so from a hockey injury. Anyway, the cool thing is, from 2 weeks ago to yesterday, I was not winded. I was playing with, in general, the same people for a couple hours. Didn't get winded at all. Played a ton better. And the in-between was primarily just walking. It wasn't a ton of everything, but it was a lot of walking, about 12,000 steps, 15,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
And even that made a massive difference in just a few short weeks. So it was very encouraging. Plus, I played a lot better than I did the week before without the last session, without any pickleball training, just because I was feeling better as well. But anyway, look at Erik. I do appreciate you coming on. I thank you so much. I'll share all the links you give us and with the audience. We'll have, excuse me for one sec. We'll have this posted later today.
Awesome.
And I just appreciate you being generous enough to share your time with us.
Absolutely.
For all you listeners out there or viewers, I want to thank you. Again, anybody, please give us a like, share, comment, ask questions, 5-star review, whatever you see fit. Doesn't cost you a dime to do it, but it is the kind of the one currency that we live on, supporting a channel. And that will help us, but it'll also help you win a paddle. And we don't have thousands of viewers yet at this point. So you have a fairly good chance of winning a paddle if you go to pickleballtoday.co/win. Just follow the instructions there. And I will be actually announcing the winner later this week via email. So you end up on an email list. Stay on the list if you want to. I've had a few people unsubscribe as soon as they get an email, and therefore I have no way to contact them to tell them they won. There's been a few people that literally lost out because of that. Most of these paddles we have we give away are valued around $200 as well. So, and some a bit more. Erik, thank you again for joining us. Folks, I do appreciate it. I do appreciate you guys too. We'll see you again next week. Hopefully we'll have Mark with me as well. And we'll leave it at that. Thanks again, Erik, and so long, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Pickleball Today, the podcast version of Pickleball Today, Canada's national pickleball news source. Pickleball, obviously, is our passion. And no matter what it is, if it's happening in pickleball in Canada, we're your premier source to bring it all to you. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. Find our website at pickleballtoday.co. On Facebook at PCKLBallToday. On Instagram at pickleball_today. On YouTube at Pickleball Today Canada. And on Twitter at Pickleball Today. See you next time.